for coming on to Citizen Business Center. Agribusiness, is it trendy now, or do a lot of young people particularly, still see it as a down and dirty job?
Well, I think it's mixed.
Okay.
We are seeing very great trends where young people are getting involved, like for instance in producing high value crops, doing processing of dairy products and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Greenhouses.
Yeah.
We've seen mushrooming of greenhouses. If you happen to visit Kikuyu around Ondire, you will see the place is white. All of that is greenhouses produced, and it's actually being done by young people, either them doing directly or appointing agents who will do it on their behalf.
On their behalf, yeah.
So it's changing.
Okay.
But this is from the tradition where, when some of us were in the rural areas, you'd look at agriculture as a very unrewarding business. To the extent that if you are looking at coffee, the average age of a farmer would be 70 years. If you are looking at horticulture or greenhouses, the average age of a farmer is 30 years. So it depends on the attractiveness of the enterprise, and it depends also on how profitable the enterprise
is. Is it easy to get into? I don't have a background in agriculture, for example, but I might be interested in going into farming. I might have a piece of land somewhere in a place that has a lot of potential. Is it as easy, or does it need a lot of research? Does it need people on the ground? What would you advise? There are people, just like any other business, salon or whatever you want to do, Uber, you don't have to go through training or whatever. There are people who, increasingly young people actually, who are passing through the college and going through diploma colleges, and some of them actually learning hands-on. So you don't actually have to spend so much time, like I said, like any other business. Yeah, sure.
Now the point really is, if you have a piece of land, some of the constraints is, where do you get capital if you are a young person? Are you going to get money from your parents, or do you go out and get money from your brother? Or do you go out and get money from the banks? The banks would definitely not give you money. They don't give money even to other farmers. They live about giving money to young people. So there are certain constraints that you have. But assuming that you can break that constraint and you can talk to somebody who can get you some money, then you enter into the business. Then you have to employ, like any other business, some managers to help you through, because it's really technical. I mean, if you are doing greenhouse capsicum, there are certain points where you have to spray it, certain times when you have to prune, certain times when you have to harvest. Then the question would be, where is the market? And that has been the biggest constraint.
Why is that? Well,
the problem is, like any other enterprise in Kenya, when it becomes attractive, a lot of people rush into it, which is typical economic business. That if the profits are high, it attracts more people who drive the profit down. But the only problem is, you don't know what the market is requiring at a certain period of time. So you harvest, you invest in the greenhouses. Right now, the price of tomatoes is below 25 shillings per kilo. That is below the cost of production. The price of capsicum is at 60 or 70 shillings per kilo. It's below the cost of production. So imagine if you are a young person, you've borrowed money, you've put in this greenhouse, you started to harvest, there is no market, and where there is market, you are given below cost of production.
So it can be tricky. So it's almost saturated in a sense.
Not really, but the only problem is that you have to time yourself.
Okay.
Now, you have to know when your production will come into the market. Now, that information is not there because you don't even know what your neighbor is doing.
Okay.
But the other important thing is consistency. Like, for instance, now the story I've given about tomatoes and capsicum, a lot of people young people are going to burn their fingers and they withdraw. When they withdraw, next season, the prices will go up. Because the few who have remained will be harvesting. And therefore consistent. Be there despite the fact that this season was bad.
All right. Is agribusiness all about making money? What about meeting community needs?
Well, it is business.
Okay.
And we want to differentiate between subsistence farming and agribusiness. Because a lot of times we've been taking agriculture as a way of life. When it rains, you plant something because you harvest it. You are entering it because you want to make money. But obviously, that is what we call social enterprising. Social enterprising to the extent that you have a double benefit. You will get your money, yes, but you are also fulfilling another social objective because you are feeding people.
Yeah.
So it's more fulfilling than, you know, probably some other enterprises where you just make money.
All right, you just mentioned something earlier about, you know, seeing that there's profitability and rushing into it, etc. Where can someone then get the best information if they want to venture? Is there a certain portal where this information is available, or maybe perhaps giving suggestions of areas where there's opportunity? Someone who's interested, where can they access that information?
You know, the most interesting thing, Janet, is that the young farmers are becoming very smart, and they're actually outsmarting the old farmers. Because, like, for instance, you have individuals like Smart Farmer. You have individuals online where you can go in and you get information on what you want. On every Saturday, the two newspapers do produce Seed of Gold or whatever it is, where they provide information about what you need to know. Now, unfortunately, the traditional farmers or older farmers are depending on extension surveys. A guy must come to your farm. So there is increasingly going to be, that information is available, but I think we need to do more. We need to know, when you have this particular problem, which button do you touch? Which word do you put into Google so that you can get it? So some of it is available, but you may not know what there is to help you for what problem.
A successful person in agribusiness, what's the turnaround? What are they making in a month, in a year?
Well, just a simple comparison. If you're in Bogoma, and you are a traditional farmer, you are doing an acre of maize. At best, you make between 50 and 60,000 shillings per year from an acre of maize. And it's one season. If you are doing tomatoes in the same area with half an acre, you probably make 200,000 twice.
Wow.
You can compare. But again, it depends on, like we said, the supply, the demand in the market, but suffice to say, you make definitely 2, 3, 4 times what the maize farmer is making, you know, if you compare the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we wind up, someone considering venturing into this, maybe they have a bit of capital, but they're torn between maybe opening a barber shop or opening a small pub or restaurant, but they're also toying with the idea of going into agribusiness. What would you advise someone who has those options laid out for them, and what would you advise them in terms of just going into it and being successful?
I think the first thing to note is that, first of all, our population is growing at 1 million people every year, at 2.5% per annum. Everybody must eat. The question is what you eat. So there is already market, because people must eat. So you can never go wrong in agriculture if you choose exactly what you want to do with the right information. But having said that, there are so many other uncertainties. Look at this, what is happening with the drought. Look at this, with the drought, there is water is not available. So if you have a greenhouse and rules are coming in that you cannot even wash your car, you cannot water your garden. So there are a lot of uncertainties. There are uncertainties about diseases. Look at what is happening with avian influenza from Uganda. So if you are a poultry farmer, a young poultry farmer in Busia or in Siaya, and this thing is now coming in, it will not only wipe all of your chicken, but it will wipe you also. So there are a lot of uncertainties, and that is where we are looking at policy. I have participated in the formation of a youth agribusiness strategy, which is looking at how you overcome some of those constraints, but all stakeholders must come together and agree to minimize some of those risks.
Okay.
And particularly when you look at the opportunities that exist in the counties, it is about facilitating the young people to come into production. It's about facilitating them to start to know where the market is. There are several things that you can do to minimize the risks and also make it possible for the young people to invest.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for breaking it down and making that information accessible. Here's hoping someone out there is inspired, but of course seeking out the right information. James Nyoro, for food security expert, thank you so much for joining us. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.